Okay, super. Well, so good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you all, and it's a pleasure to be doing this job, to be honest, at a time when there is a real shift in policy, certainly from central government, which we've been wanting to see for a long time now. We just have to hope, obviously, off the back of yesterday's or Tuesday's exciting announcements embracing the sixth carbon budget to be law come June, that it will be followed up by a real strong delivery plan and obviously the investment that's required. So I'm just going to whiz through some slides just to give you the headlines of where the LEP currently is, but just first to provide a bit of strategic context for those who may not know, we do have a couple of key strategies in place, and the first of which was the productivity strategy published in 2018, which is a fairly broad strategy but focused on the productivity drivers that we all understand around business and leadership and infrastructure and employment and skills. But so that was probably the first tangible focus for how we were going to grow the heart of the Southwest economy. But more recently, at the back end of last year, we were able to publish the local industrial strategy, which is building on the national strategy, which in the budget seems to have been parked, but is still certainly an important document for us locally. And that focuses on how we can deliver the national priorities. But really importantly, it's the first time that the LEP and the other local authority leaders, so this is produced in partnership with a joint committee, have fully embraced clean and inclusive growth as being an integral part of driving the future growth in Heart of the Southwest. And a key element of that is something that is referred to as the dynamic heart. So it's a real focus on what our strengths are and the real opportunities for us going forward. So energy in particular, with obviously we have Hinkley in our patch, marine renewables strength, particularly around Plymouth. And we have a lot of really good examples of local energy projects, both at a local community level, as I'm sure you all know very much about, but also in terms of looking at how we might shift the whole energy system and have more local energy markets. There's a focus on engineering. So again, the marine sector is a real strength of ours. Aerospace, we're actually one of the largest areas in terms of the sector, which is not often recognised, but we have some real strengths there. And we have obviously manufacturing and the likes of photonics in Torbay. And then a focus on digital, which is obviously increasingly important now. So the whole kind of data around the environmental push is key. And we have some of the best environmental scientists in our area. We have organisations like the Met Office, obviously, and some really good initiatives that are collaborations with the university and with business that are now existing around the patch. And at the heart of all of that, as I've mentioned, is clean growth and also inclusive growth. So what we've done recently is look at the recovery, and we've tried to build on that industrial strategy and ensure that there's a sort of golden thread that runs through and maintains that real focus on clean and inclusive growth. So this has been published in the last month, is available on our website, and it's focusing really on the medium to long term. So this is really about the future opportunities as opposed to the here and now recovery focus, which obviously is also a key area of work for us, working in partnership with the local authorities. And it has 7 transformational programs, as you can see here, building again on the dynamic heart around energy, engineering and digital, but it's also underpinned by 4 enabling programs which link very much to the productivity strategy and the productivity drivers, looking at place and infrastructure, business environment, ideas and skills. And then the ultimate aim is to deliver clean and inclusive growth through those programs of work. So this is going to be a real focus for the LEP. Will be actually sponsoring the transformational programs and really leading on that. And then we'll be working with all sorts of partners through our leadership groups to deliver the enabling programs. So one thing that I've been pretty focused on in the last few months, I started my job beginning of January, is to work out what the LEP's clean growth priorities actually should be. And I've done that, first of all, by trying to make sure that we capitalise on the focus in the industrial strategy and obviously more recently in the Build Back Better document, so the dynamic heart, trying to build in our aspirations to be a low carbon energy powerhouse, building on the strengths in those key sectors and the digital expertise that we have, but importantly to also try and embed zero carbon commitment in everything that we do. I didn't want this to be a siloed activity with a few folk trying to drive this agenda. It needs to be embedded across everything that the LEP and our partners do. So that is also a particular focus, again building on the productivity drivers. And then I suppose given the changes that we've all experienced in the last year, which has been transformational when you think about how we are no longer moving around, for example, and the impact that is having on the environment, we wanted to try and embrace those recent lifestyle changes. That life is going to be different. We hope it will continue to be different for the better in terms of the environmental impact. And so what we've produced, which is actually going to the LEP board tomorrow, so this hopefully will be endorsed, is a blueprint for clean growth. And the aim of this is to grow the economy in a clean and sustainable way by delivering inclusive economic prosperity, whilst also protecting the environment, lowering emissions, and enhancing natural capital. And there are 6 themes that run through the blueprint, and these are the objectives. So maybe not surprisingly, we have a focus on things like energy, but right at the top is a recognition that the LEP has to show leadership. So we have to walk the talk, using an old phrase, and we want to become leaders in delivering clean and inclusive growth. So that is looking at how we embed this whole commitment into our decision-making processes, and ensure that we are collaborating at that strategic level with our local authority and other partners to make sure that we are driving this agenda across the heart of the Southwest. And then say some specific themes around low carbon energy. So I've already mentioned that there's a commitment in the local industrial strategy to try and grow Heart of the Southwest as a green energy powerhouse, and to see if we can become a net exporter of clean energy. Now, Hinkley obviously plays a big part in that. There are extensive plans for offshore renewables, particularly off the Cornwall coast, which is obviously going to be a way in which we and our businesses can get involved and to support the delivery of that. There's also a focus within that particular theme on local community energy initiatives, and so we're keen to help the Southwest Energy Hub to access even more funding to be able to support the amazing initiatives that there are around the area. There's a theme around green businesses. So there are obviously key sectors, both in terms of the opportunities I've already mentioned, but also some of our bedrock sectors. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on tourism and ensuring that we are going to become a green tourism leaders. It looks at how we can work with the agriculture sector to help reduce their emissions and benefit from the whole shift in new agri-tech opportunities. And obviously, some of the basics like providing business support to SMEs on how to become more resource efficient, which is a particular focus which I think is currently lacking in our overall offer through the Growth Hub. There's a theme around sustainable communities and a desire which is reflected in some of the climate change plans from local authorities, I think in particular Devon, that we are established as a test bed for developing zero carbon housing and sustainable communities. So not surprisingly, there is a focus in here around the whole retrofit agenda, and we're particularly keen to work with the social housing sector to see if we can support a programme that could provide the critical mass to then enable our local supply chain to be able to help to deliver that, because obviously off the back of that there are new job and investments that flow. So we will hopefully be able to support a programme and in combination with that have a supply chain and skills programme as well. And then supporting some demonstrator projects that we're seeing in Exeter and Plymouth, just to name two places.
Thank you. And Claire, I just want to mention maybe one more minute and then we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. There, not surprisingly, is a focus on transport. I think it would be a not terribly robust plan if we didn't look at transport. So we want to push things like electrification, better rural mobility, and obviously typical old traditional walking and cycling initiatives. And then I hope you know that the LEP has been focused on supporting natural capital for some time now, and have recently announced a £1 million investment fund to support demonstrator projects in natural capital around the patch. So lastly, I'm conscious that it is inclusive growth as well. This is not my particular area, and we're maybe not as ahead as we would like to be on this, but there has been some thinking around how to embed inclusive growth into our activity, and we are already mentioned South West Mutual funding the development of that bank, and we are in the process of establishing an expert panel on this and recruiting a coordinator to help move this agenda forward. That's it.
Thank you very much, Claire. Well, the chat has been firing off, so that's interesting perhaps to have a look at later. So I guess maybe just to weave what you're bringing here today into our whole context. I understand LEP is funded by local government, so it's in some ways a top-down structure. And I guess how would you say, and perhaps this is not your expertise, as you mentioned in the last slide around inclusivity, but how are we going to include the people that are currently not prospering, that are currently not part of the economic model that is working for some of us? How are we going to include them into the picture that the LEP is sketching? I would love to hear some words from you on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is an important point. I think some people will be concerned maybe about some of the focus on the transformation opportunities, but there's a lot of work that we do that's sort of core through our skills agenda and our business support through digital connectivity that is trying to reach out to those parts of the heart of the Southwest that don't benefit as much or have as good access to that. So there are initiatives around, and we will increasingly focus on that. Now we have this core commitment to inclusive as well as clean growth in the Build Back Better plan. So we work with obviously the further ed colleges, for example. We have a skills advisory panel that leads on that, which is a particularly important piece of work for us. I suppose it's worth just saying that obviously there's you might not know, there's a review going on at the moment about LEPs and their future focus. So it is likely that our focus is going to change. Government is talking about evolution, not extinction, and it looks through initiatives like the Community Renewal Fund, Levelling Up Fund, that funding is going to be directed more at local authorities. So the whole place agenda is more likely to be delivered through that, but certainly skills, business support, sector opportunities is likely to remain an area for the LEP.
Yeah, great. Well, I guess the last question before we go over to the next speaker would just be, we're reading in the plan that the LEP needs support to turn their ideas into reality. And we're just wondering, like, how much is that open? So how much are you willing to include what you might be hearing here today or somewhere else into the next phase of design and execution?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am. I'll have a look at the various comments that you've referred to in the chat during the course of the morning. But we have an awful lot of groups, and so there is a lot of engagement with stakeholders already. I don't know how engaged the audience is, but for example, we have a rural productivity group that is meeting, that involves a lot of the rural community, which is directly helping to shape our priorities over the next few years. So we're definitely open to engagement, and to be honest, we're not going to be able to deliver on these ambitious targets, certainly on clean growth, if we don't all collaborate.
Yeah, well, I'm keen to see many people from this call go and be in those groups and committees if they're not already. Thanks very much for your contribution. We'd love for you to stay around and participate in the